You are listening to the regular version of Sexy Marriage Radio. smrnation.com.
Welcome to the show. I'm Dr. Corey Allen, and as always, alongside my wife, Pam.
Hey, hola.
We explore the wisdom and skills and have conversations to help frame what goes on in your marriage and behind closed doors so that you can have better conversations where you reside and hopefully propel things forward.
Right.
So some of the weeks we have some of the world's smartest relationship minds and conversations with authors, counselors, psychologists, professors, doctors. And
Smart people everywhere.
And sometimes, like today, you and I. Smart people.
We're smart, and we're smart, I think.
If you're new to the show and you're looking for a simple way to tell your friends about SMR, we highly suggest the episode starter packs. These are collections of our favorite episodes organized by topic, so to help new listeners get a taste of everything we do here on the show. You can find those at smrnation.com/starter. And if you got some feedback or something we missed or you want us to address specifically, send us a message by calling the show at 214-702-9565. Or, as always, for over 11 years now, feedback at sexymarriageradio.com is our inbox address. So let us know what's going on in your world, and we're happy to speak into that. Or if you like what's going on, let us know. We love hearing the feedback, too.
Yeah.
Coming up on today's regular free version of Sexy Marriage Radio, a topic that keeps coming up over the course of just the cycles of society and our show and emails is what's normal sex?
Okay.
All right, what are the characteristics that make up normal sex?
Why do we want normal sex? Am I adding a question that they're not even doing?
You're going a whole different way,
Okay.
baby, but I like where you're going there because let's not just be normal. So that's what we're going to talk about. What's normal? What are the normal aspects of sex?
That's fun.
Okay, and what I've come across and know about out there. And then on today's extended version today, which is deeper, longer, and there are no ads, you can subscribe at smrnation.com/SMR Academy. There's some conditions that people have for enjoying sex.
Yeah, well,
and we're going to talk
about
some
people. Doesn't everybody have certain conditions?
Everybody has conditions. You are correct. So we're going to talk about what are some of the main standard conditions that people have for enjoying sex.
Okay.
All that's coming up on today's show. Okay, so Pam, one of the things over the years of doing this show, all the emails we've had, thousands of emails we've had over the years, people we've talked to at the getaways, some training I've done just recently, with Dr. Marty Klein, and just the couples I've worked with, one of the things that's always out there is what's normal, right? How do I know I'm normal?
How do I know I'm normal, or how do I know the sex that we're having is normal?
All of it.
In our marriage
relationship. Right? Because I want to fit
okay.
in. I want to be seen as I'm among the crowd. I'm usual. I'm ordinary, even though most people wouldn't say I want ordinary, but there's an element of us that wants to know I'm not way out here on this limb and a freak. or
I've got company, right? It's nice to know when I've got something going on. There's other people that have walked through it so that I can talk with them.
Or
right?
are in it right now, right? Because if they're facing it, then I can too. You know, there is the phrase out there, if another man can do it, so can I. You know, and if another couple can survive this, so can we.
All right.
So I think there's different motivations on why we want to know this, because it helps us feel a part of the crowd, or gives us hope, gives us comfort, peace.
Or that we're just not off the deep end
camaraderie.
Somewhere. Yeah. But
when you think about this, most of the time I think this question is asked on, okay, what's the normal levels of frequency? What's average? You know, because normal and average can be put together. I mean, that's the same thing we talk about with the weather, right?
Sure.
That what's average for today? What's the normal high? What's the normal low, right? But you can, that encompasses all of everything. It's all an aggregate to create that. So I want to talk about what's normal when we're talking about sexuality, and this is in the West. Right, this is among Western culture.
Okay.
Is where this would be coming from.
Okay.
So if you want to talk about what the number one characteristic of couples having sex in marriage, and that's another qualifier, in a committed relationship, is they most likely have sex when they're tired.
Yeah.
Right?
Ding.
Because it's
ding,
towards
ding.
the end of the day.
Got it. I nailed it.
You're exhausted. We're doing it, baby. We're normal. But it's because it's not the priority that it once was, possibly. Maybe it never has been, where you've put a whole lot of energy, or more aptly stated, one person has put a lot of energy towards it, the other hasn't, when they can actually finally have the sex. Mm-hmm. It's towards the end of the day, they're tired, they just woke up, they're not quite awake, they don't have a whole lot of energy. I mean, there are aspects and times where, yes, it's in a better time and you're both engaged and excited and really involved. But for a majority of the time, most couples, I would say the sex when they're tired is a big characteristic.
Yeah.
Another characteristic is they probably still, to this day, even after many years of doing it with each other and many years of marriage, they probably still have some unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
You're still holding out hope.
Can't argue with that one.
Right? Maybe this is the time.
Right.
Maybe it'll flow simple this time. Maybe they'll actually initiate it.
Right.
Maybe they'll get on top. Maybe they'll turn the light on. Maybe, and it's just these unrealistic expectations. And a lot of times they're unspoken expectations too.
Yeah.
Another aspect is there's awkwardness and self-consciousness still.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense to me. I can't argue with any of these.
Most couples probably still can confuse arousal and desire.
Confusing arousal and desire.
Don't know what the differences are between those
Okay.
two. And I'll confess, even as a PhD level clinician, I can get caught up in this, confusing arousal and desire. You get overwhelmed and you get lost, you get frustrated, and you're like, I don't even know what I'm dealing with here. And I don't even know what I'm feeling. I don't know what that really is.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah.
And then, or you can confuse arousal and enjoyment.
Oh, well, that's an interesting one, because how can I be aroused if I'm not enjoying it? I guess you can.
You can. I mean, there's aspects of life. Actually, Emily Nagoski, if I'm remembering correctly, has talked about it's incongruent arousal, where your mind is in it, but your body's not, or your body's in it and your mind is not.
Okay.
And that's a dynamic that is true and real. It's unwanted on one aspect rather than the whole of you.
Yeah.
And that's a real thing.
That's an interesting concept right there.
It's one-sided. It's fairly normal.
Oh, I would think that might be right up there. Well,
And these are not a rank order, right?
Okay.
The only one I put a characteristic of a ranking was sex when tired.
when tired. Yeah.
Because I think for most people listening, they'd be like, yeah, we probably fit that category. And if you don't, please email us in and let us know how.
Right. Are you?
What's your keys and tips?
Yeah, I've got some assumptions about those people, and they're ones that probably my assumption is no kids at home.
For sure, no little ones.
No little ones. Well, that's just really the main assumption right there, is the kid thing.
Okay. And they're retired.
Well, retired did come to my head, but I didn't want to be that person. But
I don't know. I know some people in the academy will email us and say, that's us.
Right,
That's us.
yeah.
We're there. It's also can be focused solely on pleasure. It's at the expense, and we're not thinking about
connection.
the connection.
It's just my personal pleasure.
The
potentially.
companionship, the passion, the erotic. It's just pleasure. It's just physical pleasure. It's all it's focused on.
Okay.
Even as a couple, I mean, we both could come into it with this. This is just a purely physical thing.
But when I'm looking at it, when we say it's just purely for pleasure, is it about, we're not saying that it's necessarily just about one. Well, we said it's one-sided.
Right. Well, that could
quite
fit
often.
into it. Absolutely. It's just all about my pleasure, or it's just all about your pleasure. Maybe I'm just focused on your pleasure. That's all I care about that
Well,
night.
that's okay
right?
with me if you're focused
I
on
like
my
the way
pleasure.
you're going with that.
All right.
Some of it is questionable on if you're sober. That's a normal characteristic today.
It's questionable on if you're
the
sober.
levels of sobriety when you're having sex, because some.
So we're saying it's normal for at least one
One or
partner to
both.
not be sober.
Yeah, because there is an element of I'm going to get this to unwind, and that'll help me get interest in a little more amorous, or
Okay.
it's a necessity. It's a crutch. It's a component that I use when it comes to being engaged in sex.
Yeah. Okay.
You don't know what your partner likes.
It's normal to not know what my partner
I think
likes.
there's a lot of couples out there. Absolutely.
Okay,
I don't know
just
what they
making
really
sure I'm
like.
clear.
Yeah. And that's kind of all these are characteristics of one or both. maybe doesn't even know what each other likes. This episode's sponsored by BetterHelp. Without the help of a good therapist at various times in my life, particularly the times when I was at my lowest because of my own doing or life circumstances doing, let's face it, we all get stuck. We all do things that are just ridiculously stupid. And sometimes we absolutely need some help. And that's where therapy comes in. BetterHelp is an outstanding way to connect with a therapist because it's 100% online. Navigating any of life's challenges can make you feel unsure, whether it's a career change, a new relationship, becoming a parent, or trying to navigate through loss or something that's been destructive or the possibility of losing something. Therapists are trained to help you figure out the cause of challenging emotions and learn productive coping skills. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service, and it's helped match over 3 million people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists, and it's available 100% online. Plus, it's affordable. You just fill out a brief questionnaire to match you with a therapist. If things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist anytime. It couldn't be simpler. There's no waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless search for the right therapists. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/SMR. That's betterhelp.com/SMR. And again, as always, this is one therapist recommending other therapists with BetterHelp. Again, you could make some assumptions, but you've never flat out asked.
Boy, that one, I would agree there. And that one makes me super sad. Just thinking, how long have we been having sex together? And I'm not inquiring. I'm not picking up the cues.
But also some of it's completely understanding.
And I think that goes back to the awkwardness, right? That's what makes it normal is it feels awkward to me to ask these questions. It feels awkward to me.
It would be disruptive because I'm focusing solely on pleasure. See how all these are weaving together.
Yeah, okay.
But some of it also is understandable because we could read each other well enough, but is it an accurate read? When I would touch or do this way back then, it created this. But now, does it still create the same thing? Have I inquired and paid attention enough to see? Because we change.
Yeah.
We evolve. We grow up. Things shift and adjust. And what worked once maybe doesn't work the next time.
Or what didn't work before might work now.
Mm-hmm. So here's as we keep going, some more. Maybe some people go into this don't expecting to enjoy it.
Don't expecting. They don't expect to enjoy it.
Thank you. They don't expect to enjoy it. You are correct. I totally mixed up the wording on that one.
So that's, that's an interesting one. I guess I could say I had fallen victim to that because I'm so tired. Because it might have been one-sided. At one point.
So
now,
I
just assume I'm not going to enjoy this particular.
Well, and it also fits in another one. There's a possibility of it's physically uncomfortable or it's even painful. And so if that's been in the history, then I'm not going to expect to enjoy this because that is the one thing that's akin to the erectile dysfunction or difficulties that can happen. There's waiting for the shoe to drop. Even if you've had painful sexual experiences in the past, deep in your mind is that it's going to happen again.
Well, it's triggering it, right? That's how the brain works.
Right. And so I can go into this, at the very least, I can go into it with an apprehension.
Are there any positive normal things? Because all of these things sound so negative. It's like, oh, why would they do this if this is normal sex?
Wait with me.
Okay.
We'll see. Okay. Because again, maybe there's not. You feel rushed is a normal thing. You don't have time to let it unfold?
If you're tired, I can see that one going, right? If you're
in a busy schedule with a busy household with lots of stuff going on, say, hey, I got X number of minutes. Let's go. We got time. And again, all of these can have anomaly outliers of, the weekend away is different. The vacation could be different because there's a different kind of a focus. But we're just talking about the normal day-to-day interactions that most couples can have.
Yep.
Okay? I already mentioned the feeling disconnected from your partner. It's not a connecting thing. I actually feel disconnected.
Yeah.
When doing this or after thinking about it, I can feel awkward or self-conscious. This is a real prominent one. I think because there's still a lot of people that even if they've been well-practiced and well-versed with sex, there can be a component of, I still feel awkward. I'm still really self-conscious about that act, that move, that position, that aspect. Yeah, no, please, I hope they don't ask that. I hope they don't want to do this because I still feel really awkward about that. Uncomfortable asking for what they want.
Yeah. There's taboo things around that, right? So I could be uncomfortable because maybe they've rejected me. Maybe I think that they're going to say that that's off limits, or they're going to think I'm gross, dirty, or perverted or something because I want this. Yeah. Okay.
Or the other side of it is I don't know what I want because I've never actually done the work to ask myself those questions. And so therefore I'm uncomfortable letting that even be known.
Yeah.
Which is still sending a pretty sophisticated message of, I don't care about this enough to figure it out for myself, even for your benefit or for mine. So that's a huge one. One or both don't climax.
Yeah, that's normal. Okay.
Times you fantasize about you fantasize in order to climax. You disconnect and actually go somewhere else to be able to climax. It can be concerned that you aren't attractive. Can be concerned how you look. Again, that's a self-conscious, awkward, unrealistic, or awkwardness. There's themes of this that are repetitive in some regards.
Okay.
And then the last one I've got down is just you're worried you're going to have a dysfunction, worried that something's not going to go right.
Okay.
And so if you think about it, and again, these are playing out in individuals trying to do an act with another individual. Well, no wonder there are a lot of people that when they start winding their days down aren't real anticipatory excited about heading to bed sometimes because you look at all of what constitutes normal in the way we're framing it, at least.
Yeah, there can be a lot of stress and anxiousness surrounding all of those things. Hopefully one person doesn't have all of those things going on at the same time. That's a lot to deal with.
That is, and I would say probably if you think back through that list, we all could resonate with it, multiple of those at times.
Yeah.
Throughout our lives together.
Can't disagree with that.
Because again, some of these are circumstantial. Some of those we can't control. Some of those are, we are in such a busy season right now or a chaotic stage of life right now that tired sex is what we have. But maybe and here's where I think you were talking about, are any of these good or positive?
Yeah.
I think what I want to do is we shift this, and then we'll head into the extended content here in just a few minutes too, and talk even more in depth at it. But what I want to do is shift this to let it realize, okay, if that's what most people are experiencing, I can tweak some of my meanings and reasons associated with what I'm seeking to reframe the characteristics.
Okay.
Because could tired sex actually be connecting sex? Because if most of the sex we may normally have or usually have is a drawn-out physical affair, well, what about the aspects of tender loving, making love kinds of sex?
Yeah, I wouldn't use the word affair in there. Event, I hear where you're going with that, but I don't want to use that word because that's not where you're going. And
no, it's not.
It has two meanings.
No, you're absolutely right because words matter. And that's kind of what we're talking about with this whole thing, Pam, is this idea of, all right, when you hear sex when tired, unrealistic expectation, not knowing what my partner likes, if that's what's normal, the easy fix is maybe I ask, what do you really like?
Yeah.
That's how I become abnormal.
How could we?
Or weird or different. And I start changing the aspect of my marriage. I start changing the aspect of that dynamic.
Yeah. Hey, babe, how could we have sex sometime when we're not so tired?
Right. Let's carve out a little bit of time to make this happen this week? Or
I think of it on this regard. If anybody's a Dave Ramsey fan out there, he says, live like no other so that you can live like no other.
Right.
Right? Get rid of the debt. Get rid of all that junk that's bearing you down and killing your freedom, your financial freedom, so that one day in the future, you can give, you can be debt-free, you can have all this freedom. And I think of it the same way in If these are the characteristics of what really is normal,
what's actually happening
when we're
what
not
we're talking
trying to get more out of this relationship with our spouse, of this aspect of our relationship, well, let's do these other things that we talk about on all these episodes of the show,
right,
and that we'll talk about more today. Let's do that so that we can live like no other.
Right.
Right.
And have sex like no other.
And have sex like no other.
I mean, fantastic right there.
Enjoy one another
Right.
like no other.
Right. So that's how we flip this to start to realize, yes, it can feel like this is a negative connotation. But when I adjust the meaning I attach to it, I empower myself. Because a lot of times, psychologically speaking, big changes don't necessarily come from revolutionary ideas. It comes from reframing what's already going on and making a different meaning out of it. That's Viktor Frankl's work, who was a psychiatrist in Austria during World War II, lived in the concentration camps, and recognized all this suffering is incredibly destructive unless you can attach a different meaning to it, which he then posited. If I can look at suffering as it's producing something, it becomes meaningful. That's all he did, was just change it. Rather than I'm powerless to it, I have power to how I approach it.
Yeah.
And so all of these things that we are normally doing as married couples when it comes to our sex lives, I just need to adjust the meaning. I need to adjust how I am approaching it. I need to look at it differently. And then I can start looking at, what are my reasons behind this stuff? What am I really seeking? Am I clear about that? That's how I change it. Because a lot of times it really just comes down to the simplicity, not easy all the time, but the simplicity of a conversation. You know what, Pam? What is it when I do that, do you really like that or not? What is it you really like? Would you like to touch softer or harder? Would you like, more time, less time? That's just teaching each other how to treat each other, how to approach each other, how to engage with each other.
Yeah. And if I can be clean on my response to you, then, because that can be hard too. It's hard to ask that question. And then it's hard to be the spouse to answer it sometimes, not all the time. But if I think I'm going to respond where it might hurt your feelings, that can be hard. But how are we going to get past it?
Okay.
Right?
Perfect segue before we go straight into the extended content, because the way I look at this is everything that we're doing is already communicating something. So if you're in a marriage where your partner only is interested in sex when you guys are both really tired, and it's usually of their doing because that's the only time it's carved out or the only time they say yes.
It's the end of the day, whatever.
Or it's the only time you really can. Well, that's communicating something. So then it becomes, is that not hurting your feelings on what's already being communicated?
Yeah, you're not making it a priority.
Right. That's still, so I think of that as, I'm already communicating something that likely does hurt your feelings. Why don't I just be a little more honest about it? And so that at least we both know where we stand better, what we're really up against. I mean, I think of, there's a show way back when Shannon was a co-host with me. And I think it's called The Silence is Killing Me. And I think there were 2 parts, if I'm remembering. And this memory just triggered in my head of these shows. And I'm not sure exactly but I think it was a 2-parter actually. And the reason it became a 2-parter is because we were just talking about silence. And she had made an offhanded comment of, when you ask your spouse a question, in that case she was talking about her husband. When I ask my husband this question and he doesn't answer me, then that, I don't know what I need to do with that. And I jumped right in and said, he's already communicating something though.
Right.
And that totally, literally on the air, she was like, you are right.
Yeah, the silence.
And now it gets into,
answer.
Do I know what they're communicating? Do I have the courage to ask clearly? What is it? Because I could misperceive it. I don't want to know it, or I don't care about it. Well, tell me how those things don't all play out in sex too. What are my reasons for seeking something? Well, I may not know it. I may not understand. I may misperceive it, or I may not care about your reasons. So all of these things are what are put together to create the issues that can make normal. And if we want to not be normal, I need to look at things differently and approach them differently and have the courage to say so, speak so, act so, and see what happens. Because that's how we become abnormal. Let's reframe that word too.
So abnormal is awesome.
I want abnormal sex. That's a little weird.
Yeah, no. We might want to cut that part of the show.
That word still has some connotation to it. So as we wrap this up, Pam, this went all kinds of places.
It did.
I mean, this was one of those trying to read each other through the show. Most people wouldn't, if you got a video of this, if we had it videoed, you might see something like, I'm not sure where you're going with that. I'm kind of reading your face, or you're reading my face. Like, oh, let's see where this thing lands. Kind of like life, and sometimes kind of like sex.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where you're going with that, but let's see where it goes. I mean, kind of the way it all goes.
I might like it.
Who knows? Let's sit back and see. Well, if you like the show, you can help us out by rating and reviewing SMR on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or however you listen. Your comments help us spread the word about the show, and they can help others frame their conversations about what happens behind their closed doors. Transcripts are available in the show notes on each of the episode's pages. All of our advertisers' deals and discount codes are also available on each of the episode's pages at smrnation.com. Just find the individual episode, click on it, and codes, discounts, links, all right there in the show notes. Please consider supporting those who support the show. And as we say each and every week, the greatest compliment you can give us is to share the show with those that you care about. Particularly as we're talking about today, if your spouse doesn't listen, have the courage to listen to this one together. See what kind of conversations that might bring about.
Yeah,
wouldn't be easy, but it might produce some good things. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.